Hey everyone, welcome back to Sports the Nemo Way. I'm Alex, and we're back getting ready to discuss Dwight Howard, and he will be defended by Wade and I, just like last week with T Mac. I have Dwight at 44 on my list, and Wade has him at 49, so very similarly rated. But before we start our argument, let's go over his career quickly. He's 6'10", 265-pound center who played for the Orlando Magic, Los Angeles Lakers, Houston Rockets, Atlanta Hawks, Charlotte Hornets, Washington Wizards, and now the Philadelphia 76ers. He's a one-time champ, zero-time MVP, eight-time All-Star, eight-time All-NBA, three-time Defensive Player of the Year, who is playing in his 16th NBA season after being drafted number one overall, with career averages of 16, 12, and 1 on 58% shooting. So now I'll kick it to Wade to get us started.
Um, well, I'm sure we'll go farther into detail about some of his off the court things, but I feel like Dwight Howard kind of gets a bad rap and I'm not really sure why, but so I don't think a lot of people really consider him to be an all-time great center. To be honest, because a lot of people don't like him. But I think I feel like he's obviously one of the best defensive centers we've ever had. Rebounding wise, he's was very elite for most of his career. He gets bashed on a lot for an underdeveloped offensive game, but he was still a good offensive player in his prime, I believe. But I think obviously the defense and the rebounding is where he made his money. I think he's up there with a lot of the greatest centers of all time as far as defense and rebounding. Um, he is at the bottom of my center list, so I mean I'm aware he's not Shaq or Kareem or anything like that, but um, I think there's a lot of guys at the bottom of the centers list you can make an argument for, and I think he's one of them.
Fair enough there, Wade. Um, does anybody want to go back at Wade real quick before I go?
No, go ahead.
All right. Um, well, again, Dwight played for my beloved Magic, but then Dwight kind of spurred my Magic and got his way pushed out of town. But I want to look at this a little bit different. Defensively, Dwight Howard is in super elite company. He's a three-time Defensive Player of the Year award winner. He's five-time All Defense. He's a two-time block champ, a five-time rebounding champ, along with being 13th all-time in blocks and 12th all-time in rebounds. He's also seventh all-time among centers in rebounds. He's 160th in steals. Um, Most guys that have that defensive resume, which there's not many, by the way, are just complete zeros on offense. You're talking about Ben Wallace, you're talking about Mark Eaton, and you're even talking about Dikembe Mutombo. But Dwight was not that, at least in his prime. He may be now. But he averaged over 20 four times in his career, and he's 66th all-time in points, ahead of a lot of guys we've already discussed. Um, Dwight is one of 10 players all time to have a 30-30 game. By the way, this is just an interesting fact. Wilt Chamberlain did that 124 times.
Wow.
But only 9 other players have ever done it once. Think about that for a minute. That's crazy. In 2011, Dwight was second in the MVP voting. He shot over 60% from the field 5 times in his career. And he was the unquestioned best center in the league for 5 years.
Who was he behind in the MVP? Do you
Derrick
know?
Rose. A very highly argued
Oh,
MVP.
yeah, no, I was just asking. I wasn't sure.
Yeah, I get you. So, yeah, that's my opening statement on Dwight. So, is one of you, the 3 guys on the other side of this want to go?
Sure, I'll talk a little bit. I've watched Dwight for a long time. I liked him with Orlando. He played for the Lakers for a little bit. Back to the Lakers again last year. I've seen him all over. For me, the center list, was probably my deepest list, and I won't say that he was number 11, but he was in consideration at least. My bottom guys were Patrick Ewing and George Mikan, and I have to defend Mikan here in a couple weeks, so I'll get more into his stuff. Into his stuff at that point. But Patrick Ewing, to me, we just had a little bit more. He wasn't quite as high rebound wise, and he's a couple rebounds behind Dwight, but he's like 5 points ahead. Steals were similar. The thing that surprised me is Ewing actually averaged a half a block more per game than Dwight did. I was kind of surprised by that. And really, time-wise, they're pretty close at this point. I realize Dwight's still playing, and Patrick's retired, but they both played about 1,100 and some games. So that's where I had him at the bottom. Now, I had a couple other guys that I looked at, just to throw another older guy out there who's not as old as George Mikan, but Artis Gilmore was another one that I considered at the bottom. And Artis put up 18.8 and 12.3 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 2.4 blocks, won a title in the NBA. People don't hear a lot about him because a lot of his stuff was in the NBA, and then he was over to in the ABA and then over to the NBA later. But he was another one that I was looking at with Dwight and Mikan and Ewing at the bottom, and I just ended up going with Mikan and Ewing. Had to get my old guy a little bit in there, and again, I'll defend him more here in a couple weeks. But some really interesting stories to tell about him.
Was Gilmore with those stats? Was that just his NBA stats, or was it like a combined ABA thing?
I think it's a combined thing.
Oh, okay. It gets tricky with those players.
Right,
It is very tricky. If you look at most sites like Basketball Reference, where I get most of my stuff, they do combine them because I guess the way they look at it is the leagues merged.
Right.
The NBA didn't just buy the players or whatever; they merged, so like those are supposed to still count.
Yeah, and Artis Gilmore's stats are from Basketball Reference. So
yeah. He was good, actually. I just read something about him there. He was a really good player.
Well, as far as your Patrick Ewing argument goes, I have Patrick Ewing on. Well, all five of us have Patrick Ewing on our list,
right?
And I ever have Ewing higher than Dwight.
Yeah, same here.
So I'm not going to argue that Dwight's better than Patrick Ewing.
I figured it was Mike and it was the difference since I have to argue that.
It's the same over here in my corner too. I have Mike in
before
10.
Before anybody else goes on with their thing, I do want to say something about our center list because I didn't realize this until I was doing my Dwight argument. Wade and I have these same 10 centers on our centers list. Different orders, but the same 10 guys. Doug and Drew have the same 10 guys on their list, just different order.
Okay.
Not as the same as Wade and I, the same as each other.
Right.
And there's only one difference between all four of us.
Oh.
You two have Mikan, and we have Dwight.
Okay.
Other than that, our center lists are the same.
Right.
But Ray only has two centers different than the rest of us.
Wow.
Because he doesn't have Mikan or Dwight.
He has Mutombo and
He has Mutombo and Parrish. But I'm trying to think of who the other guy he left off is now that I'm sitting here thinking about it.
I do think with centers, there's at the bottom, there's a lot of guys you can make arguments for. Like in the Mutombo episode, I mean, Mutombo, I think you can make a good argument for Mutombo to be like your number 10 center. Like
Mutombo came in at 11 for me.
Yeah, like
I think I said that as well.
Yeah,
in the Mutombo episode.
There's a lot of guys you can make good arguments for at the bottom of the center list. So there's a lot of guys you can swap in and out there, I think.
Well, and where did we put Bob McAdoo? Is he on our power forward list or our center? Where do we classify him?
I don't know.
He's on one of my lists, but I'm not on my 50 list. But he was on one of the research lists. But I don't remember which position. You're right. I don't remember which position we had him at power forward or center.
Because I was looking at him with the centers, and again, he's another one that's got some pretty decent stuff going for him.
Ray, Drew, you got anything?
I really don't have anything against Dwight. except for he's really kind of just the way I see him play, kind of like more of a court gesture. He just likes to clown around on the court, and it just kind of throws me out of the whole game altogether because it's really not basketball at that point anymore. It just turned into shenanigans, and it just irritates the shit out of me.
Well, that's some of his ex teammates. What made them mad? They say he didn't take the game serious enough, and it pissed him off.
Well, obviously, I'm not in the locker room, so I don't know the extent of it. But something I've heard repeatedly for years is he smiles too much. He smiles too much. Now, I'm not saying they're the same player by any means, but isn't that Magic Johnson's MO?
Oh yeah.
So
Magic smiled all the time.
So why is it held against Dwight Howard, and we talk about it as like this great thing for Magic Johnson? Again, I'm not comparing them as players, saying Dwight Howard's as good as Magic Johnson. I'm not saying that, but I'm just saying why is it held against one and not the other?
I mean, wasn't Shaq known for being a goofball all the time?
Oh yeah. The thing with Magic and Shaq is they won.
Well,
Said Dwight
I mean, yeah.
didn't. Because I was watching the other day. I was watching old Laker DVDs when they played. When Kobe played Dwight in the finals, and it's when they're either down 2-1 or 3-1, and Kobe's to get a serious look on. Dwight's like, "Oh, what's up, Kobe? You can smile." I'm like, "Well, Dwight, really, you should be taking this serious when you're down 3-1 at the brink of elimination."
Fair point.
Well, I mean, you may be right. I don't know, but just because you're smiling, and having fun, does that mean you're not taking the game seriously? Because I mean, I'm not a guy that smiles and jokes. I mean, obviously, I don't play sports anymore, but I'm not a guy that smiles and jokes around on the field or the court. But if that's what you got to do to play, I don't know. I just think smiling is like, oh, okay, he smiled. Like, it's not something I did, but if that's what you are playing a game, you are supposed to be enjoying yourself. And let's be honest, not everybody's Kobe and Michael.
Right. And, like you were saying, dude, I remember the thing you were talking about with Kobe. Who is more intense than him? I mean,
it's pretty much just him and Jordan.
That was his MO. And that's just the way he was going to be. Maybe, I don't know, after he left the Lakers with the whole Kobe Dwight thing, I don't think, I thought when he was playing for the Lakers the first time, when he was playing with Kobe, I personally felt like he played pretty well.
Yeah.
But I don't know that anybody lives up to Kobe's standards when you're talking to Kobe.
Well,
and most guys, I think, kind of ignore it or just ignore him. I've read a couple books about him, and a lot of the players just kind of, ignore that part of it. Maybe for Dwight, it just wasn't fun anymore, and he wanted to be able to enjoy when he was playing.
This is one of those situations. I've said for years I thought Kobe Bryant ruined Dwight Howard's career, but this is also one of the situations where I feel like I wish we would have known the context of these conversations and what Kobe wanted, because Dwight led the NBA in rebounds the year he played for the Lakers.
Right. Yeah. I thought he played really well.
His defensive rating was really high, and he played majority of the year hurt.
Yeah. Sorry, I didn't interrupt you.
No, I was going to say. Now, did he want Dwight to be Shaq? Did he want him to be able to dump the ball into him and him go get 30? Because that was never going to happen. So if was that the expectation that Dwight couldn't live up to, I guess I just don't know.
Right. Yeah, and I agree with you. And and then after the Laker thing, and he went a couple teams after that, and there was people talking about not good in the locker rooms. And again, we don't know the context. What did they want from him, and what were they expecting him to do? It'd be nice to know more of the story. And I'm sure eventually the tell-all books will come out. Like the books that have come out about Kobe and stuff, and that tell some of the incidents that were just crazy. And
it went beyond Kobe, because he went from LA to Houston. When he was in Houston, he and James Harden didn't get along. But the James Harden thing is, again, funny, because Dwight was playing really well. He had some nice seasons in Houston. And then they went to the playoffs. They went to the playoffs multiple times. But Dwight's last year, they went to the playoffs, and Dwight was killing it.
Yeah, he was. He was it one of the Lopez brothers. He was. No, it was. They're playing Portland.
Portland,
And
yes.
he had a couple games where he had like I think one game he had like 24 points in the first half, and then Harden quit getting him the ball and he ended up with like 28 for the game.
Right. And
Like stuff like that.
and then in one of the games late in the series, they benched Harden. And Dwight and the rest of the team went on a big run and made a big comeback and won the game. And Harden sitting over there with a towel over his head on the bench pouting. And they end up getting knocked out of the playoffs. So, but then that offseason is when Harden decides to demand Dwight be shipped out of town. And I'm like, you're the one who failed in the playoffs. Dwight held up his half of the bargain. Dwight, like you said, like he had like a 25-point first half and then gets 2 touches in the second half. Stuff like this. Like, I don't know. I guess I understood more. I just re-listened to, okay, so Bill Simmons has the Book of Basketball podcast now. And he and Ryan Russillo and Joe House did a Dwight Howard episode. And Russillo just sat there and bashed Howard the whole time and said that anybody that it would root for Dwight Howard, he couldn't talk to him because they're too stupid to talk to. Like, and this is somebody I like. I really like Ryan Russillo, but like, I was just like, really, like,
Where's that coming from?
like maybe he's a obviously bigger into this than we are, but like, does he know things we don't, but nobody will say it publicly? Because if all you're holding against the guy is he jokes too much, he smiles too much, he's not serious enough all the time, that's not a reason to like hate, and not a reason to like, well, I can't even respect people that would root for him. We're rooting for we're sports fans. We have people in all these sports that have like hurt people and beat people and beat women, and people root for them, and we don't say, well, I can't even respect that person because they rooted for him. But because Dwight Howard smiles too much, you can't respect anybody that roots for him. It just seems like a weird stance to take.
Yeah. Some other stuff that gets overshadowed. It started with the Kobe season. He had a really big back surgery, and he came back early from the back surgery and played through it, and still led the league in rebounds, like Alex said, and was doing all this stuff. And I think his back, and that caused him a lot of health problems. Still to this day, he still has back issues because he came
He
back
had to have
early.
a second surgery while in Houston on his back.
Yeah, and then another thing, I think when he was in Orlando, they would spread the floor and feed him in the middle. Like, he got a lot of touches in Orlando, and then they would kick it out and shoot threes, and then he would score down low. Well, then I think in certain situations later in his career, he wanted the ball, but that it wasn't really, at that point, wasn't his game, and he was like demanding the ball, like in Atlanta or with like the Bobcats or whatever it was at the time, Hornets, whatever. And of course, his teammates were like, "No, we're not giving you the ball. That's not our offense. We're not, And he's down there yelling for it. I think that was another thing that happened with a couple of his brief stops at places.
Well, the other thing is the game moved away from big men.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah, I was just going to make that comment. We've talked about some guys that the game has passed them by and that they have slowed down. I don't feel like Dwight necessarily slowed down, but the game changed. It really is a totally different game today than it was when he came into the league.
Yeah. So anyway, I do have more of a Dwight Howard argument, not just talking about his character. So essentially what I was getting at earlier when I talk about our center list is there's not really too many guys to talk about because we all have mostly the same guys on our list. So really it boils down to talking about George Mikan, Robert Parrish, and Dikembe Mutombo. And 2 of those guys we've already talked about. And the other one comes up in like 2 episodes.
Right, yeah.
So again, I don't want to have this huge George Mikan conversation because we're getting ready to do an entire George
exactly.
I don't want to give away the argument.
But I do have some bits and pieces here to talk about those guys. So with Mikan, we already know how I feel about the time period, so I'm not going to harp on that. But there's a couple of things that really, really stood out to me. Number one is Dwight's career field goal percentage is 18% higher than George Mikan's. 18. That's insanity.
Yeah, it's almost 20.
well, yes, which is what like some guys shoot from three. Like, it's like Dwayne Wade's career 3-point percentage. So that was a big thing for me, especially since Mikan was playing. He was the first big guy. He's playing against a guy who's a lot smaller than him. But we've talked about field goal percentage before. The other thing is Dwight has almost tripled George Mikan's games. George Mikan played 7 seasons in professional basketball, and 439 games, which is 100 less games than Kawhi Leonard, who all three of you said hasn't played enough to be on this list. So I didn't.
No.
You're making
No.
Wade smile.
Yes. I thought that would be interesting. Wade and I on the same team was going to be interesting. So that was the only things I wanted to bring up about Mikan. So, either one of you Mikan guys want to retort before I move on?
Well, sorry, I had my mic turned off. I agree. The field goal percentage, I have no defense for that. It is what it is.
Yeah.
And he did play a lot fewer games. Now, in doing some of my research, we talk about 7 seasons. He actually played 9 seasons. But the first 2 were in the NBL. And he actually won titles in both those years.
Oh, nice.
What is the NBL?
It's
Do we
the
know?
National Basketball League. It was the precursor to the NBA. It was in 46, 47, 48, something like that. And actually, the way it started, he played for the Chicago Gears. I'd never heard of them until I did the research.
Me neither.
And then the second year he was in the NBL, he actually played for the Lakers.
Okay.
And then they moved over to, their owner moved them to the BAA, I think, which became the NBA. And so the first 2, so he actually had 2 more years. Those stats the NBA did not accept. So those 2 years are out. And he had another couple thousand points, I think, or 1,000 points.
And correct me if I'm wrong, but during that time, they didn't keep track of rebounds.
He may not, that NBL may not have had rebounds. It may have just been points.
I think
Now,
I think
the
that this
NBA did when they came back. Now, they still, of course, didn't do the blocks and steals.
blocks and
Because that was one
turnovers.
thing I was really disappointed in. I wanted to know the blocks compared to the other guys. So, yeah, there were actually a couple more seasons. So his career was a little bit longer, but not really that much longer. Again, I'll go into a lot more of that when we get to that.
I think Mikan, probably the thing that Mikan probably has over Dwight is Mikan played an important part of the story of the NBA. Like, he has a key part. He's the first big dominant big man we ever had.
You can't tell the story of the NBA without George
Yeah,
Mikan.
that's what I'm getting at.
Right.
So he has a very important part in history, which Dwight does not have.
And he was my 10th center.
Yeah.
He was the last
Yeah, same
one,
here.
but-
He's my number 10
And
too.
then, obviously, Dwight played, like 60 years later, or whatever it was, 50 years, 40 years, whatever. But
Math.
I haven't done math for a while. Oh.
Drufus, you got anything for us?
No, not much. I don't want to give away too much for George Mikan, but Dejin, correct me if I'm wrong. Aren't Dwight and George Mikan both the same height?
Yeah, I believe they're both 6'10".
Alright, I just
How
want
much does Dwight weigh?
265.
Okay, Mike played at I think about 245.
I bet Dwight in his prime was probably heavier than that. He might be listed. He was big, like muscular.
Oh, yeah.
big.
He was.
I mean, he
huge.
was. I mean, I'm not holding us to any of the heights and weights we do here. I literally brought all the heights and weights straight from Basketball Reference.
Right.
No,
that's
no,
what
I'm-
I got.
Like, we talked about that with the Mark Jackson episode. Like, it said Mark Jackson weighed 180, and I was like, bullshit.
Yeah.
Well, I mean, they say like LeBron realistically weighs like at certain points in his career he was like 270, 280. Like, he was
Yeah.
big, and Dwight's taller than he is and just as muscular.
Yeah.
So I bet
Right.
he's a pretty big boy.
Well, when Dwight quit eating the candy
Yeah.
and really started hitting the weights, he
Yeah.
he
I don't
really
know-
got big.
I don't remember if it was his 3rd or 4th year in the league, but like, he came back from the off season, and you were like, oh my god.
He got
what
real
he did,
big.
what did he do in the offseason? Because he came back looking like a bodybuilder.
Oh yeah,
Yeah,
exactly.
His shoulders are popping out.
Yeah,
He's all
it
jacked.
was-
And
because he was skinny when Orlando drafted him. I shouldn't say we. When Orlando drafted him, he was very skinny, and I remember thinking, because that was back before we really covered high school kids that weren't LeBron in depth.
Yeah.
Like you knew who some of the top high school kids were, but you didn't really get to see him. You didn't really get to do that stuff. And like I remember when they were showing him like Orlando might take Dwight Howard 1, and I was like, this skinny high school kid, like with no moves or
Was
no
that
jump
the-
shot, like what?
was that the Mecca Okafor year?
Yeah, the
It
Mecca
was
Okafor
between him
year.
and Okafor.
Oh,
he
Yeah,
got
I
number
wanted
one.
Okafor. I did. I won't deny. I mean, obviously the Magic did the right thing because Okafor's career fizzled. But I wanted Okafor bad, and when we took Dwight Howard, I was like,
And that was a legit conversation for a while because Emeka Okafor was by far the best player in
Yeah,
college.
he had an amazing college career.
and he was the more polished product.
Yeah.
I mean, he could turn around, jump. Had a turnaround jumper. He had a jump hook. And he was elite defensively in college. He was a big time shot blocker, and his first few years in the league was nice.
He averaged a double-double for numerous years in a row.
Yeah, and then he hurt his back.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, he wasn't trash. He was a solid player.
But anyway, I just that was the stuff I had on Mike, and I didn't really bring up a bunch of Mutombo stuff because we used Howard to compare to Mutombo in the Mutombo episode. So I didn't do a bunch of Mutombo stuff. But again, Parrish, somebody we've already discussed. I don't want to browbeat us with another whole bunch of Parrish stuff. But Howard averages more points, more rebounds, more steals, and more blocks by I do believe, identical assist numbers, while shooting a higher field goal percentage, and he quadruples him in all NBAs. So that's really what I went with that. And they're not identical players by any means. Parrish and Howard, I mean, they're not identical players. Their games were slightly different. But I think if you ask Dwight to do a lot of the things that Parrish did for those Celtics teams, I do believe Dwight could do them. Probably the only thing that he did that or that Parrish did that Dwight wouldn't be able to do was his baseline jumper, because Dwight can't shoot. So
I think just in general with Dwight, like when you look at all the great centers, like we all know, Olajuwon, Robinson, Jabbar, Moses Malone, all those guys. Dwight can compete with them defensively and rebounding wise. He's, I think, right there with them. He has the accolades for defense. He's just a notch, or in some cases, a few notches below them offensively. He didn't quite develop the offensive game that a lot of the great grades had. He relied a lot on just pure athleticism, and he developed a few little post moves. Like he got a little better at it, but that's kind of his downfall was offensive development compared to some other guys.
I agree, and I don't deny that Dwight never became a dominant post player or developed post moves or all those things. All those complaints are true. But that being said, we can hold, like, if you want to say how good could Dwight Howard have been if he developed a post game, that's a fair question. But that doesn't take away from what he did. Post game or not, when he goes out and averages 23 and 14, he did that without a post game. Now, do I think the post game would make his stats better now? Yes, probably so, because like last year with the Lakers, he scored pretty much all his points by catching lobs from LeBron and Rondo,
Right.
And dunking.
Or just put back rebound dunks.
Yeah, put back rebound dunks. I mean, that's really where he's at right now at this late point in his career. But if you could throw the ball to him, I'm not saying you're going to feed him the ball, but if you could throw the ball down to him in the second unit 2 or 3 times a game, and him go down there and dream shake or drop step, whatever he's going to do, and get you a few more baskets, it probably would benefit him at this point in his career. But I think at this point in his career, the NBA has just passed him by as far as The NBA doesn't play big men anymore. The NBA doesn't want big men that can't shoot threes. All these things, and Dwight's not going to be that guy. Dwight can't shoot free throws, so he's not going to shoot threes. Crap, I just lost my train of thought. And last year in the playoffs, because I do think the NBA is going to slightly swing back towards the big men here recently. Last year in the playoffs, when the Lakers played Denver, and the first couple games, Jokic ate them up. What did they do? They started Dwight Howard for the rest of the
they put
series.
Dwight in.
And Dwight and Jokic went to war, and Dwight played him very well. I'm not saying he went out there and shut him down completely, but Jokic didn't have near the rest of the series he did the first couple games when McGee was out there. A guy that's supposed to also be good defensively.
Really good. Yeah, Dwight kind of took the job over from McGee as the year went on. Just to throw in a little bit, I mentioned Artis Gilmore earlier, and I haven't done a huge amount of research on Artis, but I pulled up some stuff to compare him with Dwight. Field goal percentage we talked about earlier. Dwight's 586. Artis Gilmore's 582. Right there together. Games 1147 for Dwight, 1300 for Artis. He played a few more games. And Wade, you were asking earlier about how many seasons? 5 in the ABA, 12 in the NBA. Played 17 total, so that puts him close. We won't do 3-point percentage because neither one of them are that. Free throw percentage, Artis was 698 to Dwight's 565. Rebounds per game, Dwight 12.2, Artis 12.3. Assists, Dwight 1.4, Artis 2.3. Steals 0.9 for Dwight, 0.6 for Artis. Dwight's blocks 1.9 to 2.4 for Gilmore. Gilmore did have a few more turnovers, 3.1 to 2.8, but he averaged 18.8 to 16.4 on the points. And then when I got to looking back at his career accolades that we talked about earlier, Gilmore, of course, in the Hall of Fame, 11-time All-Star, 5 times All-ABA. He won a 75 ABA championship. He was 5 times All-Defensive in the NBA. He was on the All-Rookie team. He was Rookie of the Year. He actually won an MVP in the ABA. So I think Artis Gilmore and Dwight compare pretty. And I mean, people put Artis Gilmore pretty high on center lists.
That's what I say. It sounds
I
like
think they compare pretty close.
Sounds like Gilmore should have made a list or two.
It's kind of surprised when I look at what he did.
Pretty impressive.
I like Artis Gilmore. He does have some impressive stuff going on. We haven't had this conversation yet. I don't know if this is the place to have it, but what do we do with the ABA stuff?
Really, I mean, it is tough.
Because are we gonna say, well, he's 5-time All ABA? Does that mean something to us?
Right. Yeah.
I don't know. I tend to lean away from it personally.
The stats get really crazy in the ABA. Do you ever look at Dr. J's stats in the ABA compared to the NBA?
Yeah, and
his rebounds are
he's averaging 12, 13 rebounds a game.
Yeah, and then goes to the NBA and they get knocked in half.
Well, there'll be other players that are going to come up, like Dr. J, Rick Barry, that had significant time in the ABA before they came to the NBA. Of them. So it's a good discussion to have.
It is. It's interesting. Well, because first off, the talent pool was split in half.
Right.
That's the thing. That's the knock on both sides. Because you had the talent split in half. And here's something a lot of people don't realize. There was a lot of people forced out of the NBA when the merger happened because once all the talent got together, guys just weren't good enough to play anymore.
Right. Well, when the two leagues merged, the NBA took the top 4 teams from the ABA. And I think they were down to an 8-team league maybe by that point. And they dropped the rest of them. Yes. So you've got a few teams that are moving in, and then you've got a whole bunch of players that are suddenly out of work, and competition got a lot tougher. And
well, I just read an article the other day talking about somebody, again, we're going to talk about in a couple of weeks, so I'm not even going to say their name, but a Hall of Famer that they're like, their career ended abruptly after the merger because they just couldn't keep up anymore. And they're like, if they wouldn't have merged, he probably would have played another 3 or 4 or 5 years, and his overall career numbers would be more impressive, so on and so forth. But they introduced all this young or different talent to the league, and he couldn't keep up, and it ended his career a lot more abruptly than people thought it would. I don't know what the correct answer is with the merger and the ABA NBA stuff, but Wade's point is very valid. The numbers in the ABA are crazy.
Yeah.
Some of them, I was just looking at like Artis' first 5 years. He peaked out at 24-6 per game points. Not too crazy, but he peaked out at 18-3 in rebounds. And he actually had a year where he averaged 5 blocks a game.
Yeah, that's what I'm saying. Like, you look up Dr. J's stats. Dr. J's stats, some of his stats skyrocket in the ABA, and then they fall off a lot when it comes to the NBA. Not that, I mean, he's obviously great.
Yeah,
in
well,
both
we all
leagues,
have Dr.
but
J on our list. I mean, not
Yeah.
we're not docking Dr. That was really bad.
He's just like the.
We're not putting Dr. J down, but he didn't drop off in his mid-20s to like you said, half the rebounds and less than half of the blocks and drop his points significantly. That didn't happen from one year to the next in the middle of his peak. Like, it was because he started playing better competition and better teams and so on and so forth.
He's just the best comparison. He's the most famous player from
yes.
both leagues.
I agree. And I can hear Mark in the back of my head going, Alex is wrong. The ABA was the better league.
The ABA was interesting. And just a note, George Mikan was big in forming the ABA. And was one of the commissioners, leaders.
Was he really?
To start the ABA. Yeah. And I think he may have actually been the one that picked the red, white, and blue basketball to try to get the. So when Mikan quit playing, he stuck around basketball and was big in the ABA. I was telling Ray earlier, I think he also was part of a huge lawsuit that went on for years against the NBA to get pension benefits for retirees, for some of the old guys that were getting little or no money. So.
I just want to say one thing. I felt really sad when the ABA merger went down because Jackie Moon did not get to bring his
Jackie
Flint,
Moon.
Michigan Tropics to the to the NBA.
So
Brought a
funny
tear to
that
my
movie.
eye.
That is a great movie.
Because they used the Spurs and the Pacers too.
Yeah.
Oh, coffee black.
Well, I did miss the St. Louis Spirits.
Yeah.
That was a pretty cool team.
Well, I don't know that we actually argued about Dwight Howard all that much, but do we want to give our closing statements on Dwight?
Yeah, I'll go first.
Sure.
For what I think Dwight is, he was really close to making my list, but I just think he's in probably the most toughest position out of the 5, I would say. I think all of us agree with that because I think I have 4 centers in my top 10, so they're definitely the strongest category, I think. And I think it's just hard for Dwight to make it in my top 10 centers.
Okay.
Right?
I have nothing against Dwight. He's a very impressive, big guy. It's just, I don't know, there's something about him that just kind of brings me out of the game. Just, I don't know, he'll be down there in the post, and then it'll be like 5 minutes, and then him and the other guy be arguing about, hooking each other together, and you got to break them up like a couple of bulls or something. And they'll be down there for 5 minutes, and it's just like, okay, well, I'm done for the night. I don't want to watch this anymore. But I mean, yeah, he's really an impressive center. But I went with other people instead of him. I just thought they were better centers than Dwight.
I like Dwight too. I'm kind of like Drew. The centers was my toughest position, and of course I've thrown in a couple old guys, and I threw in George Mikan on this, which a little tease we'll talk about in a couple of weeks. And again, artists. I was looking at Artis Gilmore too, and centers is tough, and so I just went a slightly different way, but I do like Dwight.
Well, I will say this. I do believe you're right, Drew. I thought centers is the most packed position. And
Yeah.
I went 1 to 8 like that.
Oh,
Just
yeah.
lickety split. I knew who my top 8 centers were. I might have to stop and think for a second on order, but I knew who my top 8 centers were before I sat down.
I was pretty sure. That was the first one I did, just trying to get to the flow of things. I was pretty sure. I was like, bang, bang, bang.
Well, think about think how great Patrick Ewing was, and he's at the bottom of all of our center lists.
Yes.
He was a
Yes.
great player. Like
Exactly. Yeah, I agree.
And he's around what 8, 9, 7 for all of us. Like, and he was a dominant force for a long time in the NBA.
Yeah. And so, I ended up with the last two guys on my list ended up being Dwight and Willis Reed. Sorry, I almost just said Willis. Willis Reed.
What you
And
talking about, Willis?
that's right. I don't remember exactly who you guys' final two guys was. I think you just said yours was Ewing.
Ewing and Mike.
I think Ewing's at the end of your
Yeah,
list. too.
Ewing and Mike.
And I had
mine.
Reed one ahead of Ewing.
Yeah. So
All
I
right
mean,
there together.
yeah, it's the least argued position.
I
think
agree.
I think since every single person here has 8 of the 10 guys on every single list, I think the big thing will be arguing positioning later. Well, I have Ewing at 10 and you have Ewing at 6. What the hell? It'll be, or I have Ewing at 49 and you have Ewing at 39. Stuff like that. It won't be, we're not going to be sitting here arguing about a bunch of centers that didn't make everybody's list. 8 of the 10 of all of our lists, or more on some of them, made all the lists. So, anyway, I don't want to ramble. I'll give my closing statement. No, I don't have Dwight high on my list. He's 9 on my list. I think Dwight, like I said earlier, is elite. He's like one of 3 guys to have 3 Defensive Player of the Year awards. His elite defensive stuff is awesome, but he's not a zero on offense like the guys that did that along with him. That was the big selling point for me. Plus, if he finishes this season without missing the season due to injury, or maybe plays another season after this, he'll probably be top 10 in both blocks and rebounds all time. So that's a huge thing, I believe. I mean, nobody's ever going to catch Wilton Russell in rebounds. So, I mean, that's not even a realistic thing to wish for. But I think he's a lot better than a lot of people give him credit for, not just the guys in this room. I mean, the national media, the people, just fans in general, because, like Ray said, there's a lot of people that just dislike Dwight. And we watched some all-time greats like Kobe and Harden publicly bash him for years. So I do. Although Kobe Bryant was the one that brought Dwight Howard back to the Lakers last year. Before he died, he went to the front office and said, "You need to sign Dwight." When Dwight was not blackballed. Dwight was pretty much out of the league because nobody would sign him. And Kobe went to bat for Dwight and got Dwight signed in LA. Not part of my argument. I'm just saying it's a weird development.
Things have gotten so out of hand with him with the national media. A lot of people don't think he should even go to the Hall of Fame. That was an argument just like last year all over all the sports shows. People arguing if he's a Hall of Famer or not, which I think is kind of ridiculous.
He's a first ballot Hall of Famer, and it shouldn't be a question. Statistically and award wise, there's not an argument to be made. We already established what it takes to get into the Hall of Fame. He did it. Let's move on.
I would agree. There's no doubt that he should be in the Hall of Fame.
Oh yeah, for sure.
He's disliked by so many people. That's how it goes. So it's fair or not.
No,
that's how it works.
I don't know what he's done.
Nothing serious.
We're doing it all over the place. The NFL did it to Terrell Owens. I don't like Terrell Owens.
Kurt
Schilling. But you being a nice guy or your political affiliation has nothing to do with what you did on the field of play. Had nothing to do with what you did on the field of play, excuse me. And that's what we're judging you on. Now, Buster Only can come out and say there's a clause in the Hall of Fame voting that says, what does he call it? It's like a personality clause where you have to be a decent person or something. He always puts it on social media of why he doesn't vote for certain guys. What's a crock of shit? Okay? And not everybody feels this way because guys like Ty Cobb are in the Hall of Fame.
Right, and he was not popular with the other players.
Right. And, is, I'm not trying to pick on you Colts guys, but Marvin Harrison's a giant fucking asshole. And he got in the Hall, but we're going to keep Terrell Owens out for the same thing. Like, we got to be consistent here, people. I don't think laughing, smiling, even joking, even if you didn't take the game as seriously as other people, I don't think that's a reason to keep somebody out of the Hall. Anyway, I have him in my top 50. I do feel fairly strong about it. But I can understand some things being said.
I really don't have too much more to add. We've all kind of hit on everything. I feel like we've all pretty much stated that the bottom of the centers is tough. There's a group of guys you can compare. I mean, Uncle Doug literally just compared Gilmore to Howard, and it was extremely close. And I don't think any of us even have Gilmore on any of our lists.
No, none of us do.
So I mean, the bottom of the centers is hard. It's I watched Dwight. So he was one of the like that clicked in my head when I was thinking at the bottom of my list. He is, defensively, like Alex said, he has a ton of accomplishments that a lot of players have never come close to achieving. Offensively, he has a few weaknesses, but overall, I thought he was worthy of the bottom of my top 10 centers.
All right. Well, that wraps up Dwight Howard, and we can move on to the trivia portion of our episode. So, does anybody have a question ready to go so that we can ask it?
I got one pulled up.
Go for it.
A little different here this week. Can you name three? I'll take any three of the top 5 players ever with the most technical fouls. Just give
That's
me
an interesting question, Willard.
3 out of 5. Give me 3.
Wow. That's harder than I thought it was going to be. When you first asked it, I was like, I could do this. But maybe not as good as I thought.
How many do you want?
3.
You want us to list 3?
Any 3 in the top 5.
Okay. I have my 3. I don't feel great about it, though.
Well, once you hear the top 5 names, you'll be like, okay, that makes sense.
Anybody else got theirs?
All right, one more. You want to say it?
All right, we're waiting on Drewby.
All right, I'm ready.
All right, Wade. You ready?
Okay, let's go one at a time here.
All right, I got you.
Alberta.
I got Wallace, Kobe, and Rodman. Rashid is who I'm talking about.
You have 2 correct. Kobe is not on there.
I have Rasheed Wallace, Draymond Green, and Dennis Rodman.
You again got 2 out of 3.
No Draymond?
No Draymond.
No Draymond. Okay.
I have Horn, Rodman, and Lambeer.
Oh, all Pistons. All right.
You got 1.
No Lambeer, Mahorn. All right.
I have Rodman, Kareem, and Larry Bird.
You got 1. The top 5 is in order. Number 1 all time is Karl Malone. Right behind him, only 3 behind him, is Charles Barkley. And then you got Rasheed Wallace, Gary Payton, and then Dennis Rodman.
Good question.
Yeah, so no points. on
no
the
points.
First question of the night. Anybody else got one?
Yeah, I got one.
All righty.
We talked about Dwight not being a great free throw shooter. Who has the worst all time, not single season, not any game, but all career free throw percentage? And by the way, it happens to be 41.4%.
Is there a minimum like free throws you have to shoot or something to qualify for this? Do we know?
Probably. I'm sure there is. but-
Yeah, I don't remember exactly what it was. But we're talking guys that have played quite a bit. So
Okay, I got my answer.
I can't think.
This guy stood out in my mind because one year I remember he shot 19% from the free throw line. So I feel like his career percentage can't be great. Anybody else got theirs?
Yeah, I got mine.
So we're waiting on the Willard.
I got it. We're good.
All right.
Okay.
I have Andres Biedrins.
nope,
Shaq.
nope,
I have Kenyon Martin.
nope,
Ben Wallace.
Ben Wallace. Wade got it.
Ah.
Ben shot 41.4% for his career. We're not just talking one season, the career.
I always found it very interesting with him. He obviously was averaged like 5 points per game on his career, something absurd. Was a terrible free throw shooter, but he had this one jump shot in one spot that he was money from all the time. It was like off to the side of the free throw line. For some reason, he could hit that one jump shot. Don't know why.
All right, anybody else ready?
Yeah, I got my question.
All right, let's go, Drew.
What NBA star hosted Saturday Night Live in 2018?
All right.
I think what was going on in 2018.
By the way, I have no idea. It's purely a guess.
Wait, is it like current player or just was just any player?
Just an NBA star.
Okay.
Anybody got their? I got my answer.
I got mine.
All right. All right. Well, I'll show you mine. Joel Embiid.
No.
I said D Wade.
Nope.
Shaq.
No.
Like Kobe.
Nope. Charles Barkley.
Barkley. All
Brady
right.
Barkley.
All right. So Ray, me or you?
I'll go ahead
All right.
with this one. Who was the first lottery pick in NBA history?
I don't know when the lottery started. How I'm gonna? This is gonna be purely a shot in the dark. All right. Well, I took my shot. It's purely dark though.
Yeah, same here.
All right.
I got mine.
Yeah, I got mine.
All right, go ahead.
Well, I have Manning. Danny Manning.
Okay.
I said Ewing.
Okay.
Said Akeem Olajuwon.
But Shaq.
And the correct answer is Patrick Ewing.
That was you.
Yep, that was me.
Oh, you got it. Nice.
I just remember the big conspiracy theory that they
frozen,
thought,
the frozen
the
envelope.
frozen envelope.
All right. Who's left?
That is just me.
Okay.
Okay, here's the question. Who was the first player to be drafted number one overall without playing high school or college basketball? Silence.
Can't.
So was he on work release when they picked him up?
It'll make sense when I tell you the answer, but
Okay.
I'm not in the hint game.
Well, I didn't figure you were.
I'm getting my ass kicked in this game. I'm not.
I'm
you
just
know.
trying to think of someone who didn't play college.
Hmm. Damn.
Yeah, I just keep thinking of people, and I know where they went to college. So I'm like, ah, crap. Like number one picks.
Bray's confident in his answer.
I think I got it.
I don't even know if this guy's number one pick, but I'm gonna write him down.
And if it's right, I want to show it real hard.
Everybody got it?
Yeah.
All right, let's see it.
I said Luca.
No, it's not Luka.
Yeah. I know Kevin Garnett.
Not Kevin Garnett.
Oliver Candy.
It's not Oliver Candy.
I said Master P,
Master P.
the rapper.
Okay. Well, the correct answer is Yao Ming.
Oh.
Oh, God.
Ah, yeah. Okay.
Yeah, that never clicked in my head at all. Just
Right.
never even crossed my mind.
I was thinking
Damn it.
foreign, but I didn't go back far.
Yeah.
Make him say, oh. No.
All right, so that wraps up our trivia section. With the scores after this week are as stands. Ray with 11, Alex with 16. Neither one of those scores are moved in multiple weeks. Doug with 21, and Drew and Wade are now tied at 23 after Wade got a question right tonight.
All right.
So that'll wrap up the episode. Thanks for listening, and join us next week to discuss Vince Carter, So we appreciate your listen, and I hope you listen next week. Thanks.